age ago, the beating heart of our people was a king who knew only victory. He wanted nothing more than an honorable death on the battlefield. Yet, none could match him, and so he wandered the earth, becoming lost in time and tide. Then we too lost our honest purpose, while silk-clad men sat upon the throne. But tremble now, all cities that lay under the stars, for out of the shadows and mists of the land of promise, our courage has been rekindled, our heart has returned, and the world will burn.
All right, how's everybody doing tonight? I forgot to add myself to the stage. So somebody give me a shout out just to make sure you can hear me. I'm always making sure that somebody has to give me a shout out in the comments, tell that you can hear me, because I have literally forgot to add myself to a stage long and ever ago for an entire hour, and I talked. So anyway, Michael says you can hear me. Great, Michael. Great. So what I want to talk about tonight is film noir, but film noir in comics, if that makes any sense, because, well, film noir is, if you take it, well, some people take it as a genre, some people take it as a style. I take it more as a style. And why do I want to talk about film noir? Well, I want to talk about it because the new book that we're working on right now, which is going to be digitally published first anyways, is, as I always put on my Twitter, it is in the genre, well, again, in the style of film noir. And I want to talk about film noir just for a little bit and talk about, give you a couple of panels from the new book, which again, I've been putting up on Twitter, and talk about it for a little bit. And as always, what I usually do here, if you're new, I just talk about my topic for probably about 15-20 minutes, and then I get to the chat and answer any questions that you have. So if you have any questions whatsoever about anything I say tonight, about any of my videos, about any of my campaigns, just put them in the chat and put a question mark or tag me in it so that I know that you're talking to me, and I will try my best to get to every comment before we go tonight. I usually do. So here's the thing. I want to talk about film noir, and let's go right to a share screen. Okay. Give me 2 seconds here. I'll share a screen. I got Encyclopedia Britannica up here, so we'll share that. So this is what Encyclopedia Britannica says about film noir. It says film noir style of filmmaking characterized by such elements as cynical heroes, stark lighting effects, frequent use of flashbacks, intricate plots, and an underlying existential philosophy. The genre was prevalent mostly in American crime dramas of the post-World War II era. So when I read this, I was thinking to myself, okay, most of that fits with what I'm doing for the new book that let me see if I can make that a little bigger on the screen here, so you guys can see it. Full screen layout. There we go. Full screen. So when I'm working on the new story with my artist, who I'm working with so many artists. Let me Enrique is the artist for it. Anyways, we're doing it in basically black and white. And it's set back in the 30s. So, and it is in the Thomas Valiant universe. But again, we're setting it in the 30s. Let's see. I'll stop that screen for a minute. That's flashing up here. And again, we're starting off with black and white panels. So I think at one point we're going to also add possibly some blue to it as well, just because the name of the story is Fade to Blue. And blue does, I don't know, it's almost like a character in the story itself. So what I am going to do is try and possibly put blue in just subtly in the places where blue belongs and is attached to my character. Not that everything that's blue is going to be blue. But again, it's mostly black and white. And part of the reason why I'm doing this story is, as I said last week, I just have so many stories stuck in my head all at once that I am trying my best to get these out more and more so that everybody can see them, because right now I can only get out about 2 graphic novels per year. And even if I could get out more than 2 graphic novels per year, which is possible, I don't know if my audience has the money right now to support more than 2 of my graphic novels per year. That's a big ask to do more than 2 a year. So I figured, okay, we're going to start publishing some of these things in different formats. And I talked to very briefly Alterna Comics about publishing this story, and I thought maybe I would do it over there, but no, I really think we're going to publish this digitally, either attached to the member section of the YouTube channel, possibly Subscribestar, but I really think it's going to be the member section of the YouTube channel. Anyways, but it's in a film noir genre or style, and again, who you ask about film noir depends on what kind of answer you get, whether it's a genre or a style. And again, to bring up that definition from Encyclopedia Britannica, when I wrote the story and looked at it and I said, yes, I have most of these things. Cynical hero, not so much. Cynical, he's a reluctant hero, to say the least. Stark use of lighting, yes, we're doing it in black and white, mostly. Frequent flashbacks, we got flashback in the first 8 pages, so I'm thinking probably. And also intricate plots, yes, we're going to have an intricate plot. It's an RJ story, you're going to get an intricate plot. But the thing is that I don't have existential philosophy. And I quite honestly think that existential philosophy is one of the things that really defines film noir for a lot of people. Let's see here. I will put up a new screen here, because let's go to the Wikipedia just for 2 seconds and look up what they say about film noir. And I'll see if I can make this a little bigger on your screen than the last time here. Give me 2 seconds. I will give you some more visuals, full screen layout. So Wikipedia has a giant page on it, but let's read a little bit of the first. It says film noir is, I should put my glasses on if I want to actually read this, a cinematic term used primarily to describe stylized Hollywood crime dramas, particularly those emphasizing cynical attitudes and motivations. In the 1940s and 1950s are generally regarded as the classic period for American film noir. Film noir of this era is associated with a low-key black and white visual style that has roots in German expressionists. Many of the prototypical stories and attitudes expressed in the classical noir derive from the hard-boiled school of crime fiction that emerged out of the United States during the Great Depression. So it goes on to talk about a whole lot of stuff about film noir here, if you want to go look up something on Wikipedia. I don't know if it's the greatest source in the world, but it does have an extensive description of it in there. But the thing being, again, the existential philosophy is something that a lot of film noir has. Why? Well, it's a product of modernism, and the thing is also that it's a product of the Great Depression, as it said just there on the Wikipedia page, being that you had this dark time where things were not going very well for the majority of people around the world, and you also had a lot of depression within people, not just economy. And film noir was really a reflection of that, but it also embraced at the same time the modernist idea of what they usually call, and they do call in one of those articles I just clicked on, it's a disenchantment. Now, disenchantment is something I talked about a couple of times on my channel, but the thing is that the modernist movement, a little bit for modernism, that is to say, they disenchant the world. They say there's nothing really but materialism, although they still use the systems based on enchantment. That's what modernism typically did. With postmodernism, it's no, there's no enchantment, and we're not even going to pretend that there's anything like enchantment in your life. So enchantment being something other than the physical, something other than just the material. And that's a product of low-key modernism and basically postmodernism. But here's the thing. This is, I'll get a little bit into the philosophical here, and we'll go back to the very roots. As I always say, when you have postmodernism, it's very much a French version of the German critical theory. And German critical theory is basically just neo-Marxism. So the idea of disenchantment, if you want to trace the roots backwards through there, through the neo-modernism, basically you would get it from writers like Horkheimer and Adorno. They wrote a book which I always reference a lot here, which is called The Dialectic of Enlightenment, which basically takes the Marxist idea that, there is an end to history and you're progressing towards this end of history, and they apply a Hegelian dialectic to the entire thing for history and say that, once you've gone past this point in history, you can never return to it. They talk about, they say, you place things behind a barrier of the unrepeatable. And that's what Horkheimer and Adorno talk about in The Dialectic of Enlightenment. And their dialectic is basically the communist dialectic of getting to the end of history. And they go through fiction stories, quite honestly. That's the entire book. They go through different fiction stories to show this, supposedly. But that's the thing. Part of that step process is disenchantment, and that's quite literally part of the critical theory playbook. It's that people wake up to the idea that anything non-material is just a fantasy, and that's what disenchantment really is. And that played right into postmodernism because, well, postmodernism, again, is the French version of critical theory. Why? Because the French will not use anything German. They just won't. And it's not just German, honestly. I said this in one of my videos. The French will not use words from any other language. If it starts to creep into their language, they have, I think, still in France, an official government body that creates new words to replace foreign words that start to make their way into their lexicon. So they do this with even bizarre little things. Like, I think I don't know, it was like the word sweater at one point, which was an English word, started to come into their lexicon, and they said, no, we have to make up a French word for it. So the government body made up a French word for it. Anyways, the point is the French will not use anything else unless they make it French first. And that's exactly what they did. Postmodernism is critical theory. The German critical theory is just turned into a French form, and they make it more French accessible. And disenchantment is part and parcel of that entire thing. And disenchantment fed right into modernism and then into postmodernism that we know within our culture today. But the point being, for film noir, this idea of disenchantment is part and parcel of what you see if you're discussing it as a genre. But if you're discussing it as a style, I would say no, it doesn't have to be there. And that's what they talk about when they talk about existentialism. It's the study basically of existence, but the study of existence through a very specific philosophical lens, which is the philosophical lens, again, firstly of disenchantment, and secondly of, well, I don't know exactly the terms that they use, but I would say personal, well, not personal gain, but personal selfishness. Basically, it's that your characters are all selfish and they're just going to look out for themselves. And that's the whole hard-boiled part of this entire thing. You'll notice that within film noir, you'll see a lot of even good film noir. I mean, I love The Maltese Falcon. It is a great film noir film, but it is a great film just by itself. And even the name film noir obviously is French, and it was what the French called these melodramas, because in America they were just called melodramas until the French coined a phrase for it, and it didn't even start to get used in America until about 1955. But the point is, again, the whole hard-boiled part of it, the whole existentialism part of it, is the idea that, look out for yourself, because no one else is going to look out for you, because why would they? Because there's no reason to, because there's nothing beyond the physical. There's just the physical realm, the material realm, and that brings out an idea not only of the characters just looking out for themselves. Again, you think about Sam Spade in the Maltese Falcon. Is it Sam Spade? I think it was Sam. I get my characters confused, but the main character within the Maltese Falcon, who's Humphrey Bogart, yeah, he is only looking out for himself. You'll notice at the end, and you might miss this because, well, first of all, there's again there's a bit of a disenchantment in the fact that he doesn't really work with the police. He stymies them because they're not something that needs to be respected. Why? Because justice is an abstract concept, and again, you don't need abstract concepts. It's not material. There even disenchantment down to that level, that justice isn't really a thing. And yes, he's working with all these people who are worse than him, but at the same time, Gutman, Casper Gutman, and even the woman that he actually starts this whole adventure with, who's the one who comes to his office as a private detective. Anyways, he sacrifices her at the end. Why? Because he's concerned with himself. And again, this is all part and parcel of film noir, part and parcel of the disenchantment of just normal everyday life. Because again, it's not just disenchantment in the fact that, there's no ideas of God, there's no idea of religion, there's no idea of miracles, all of that is out. But also out is the very basic human notions of, why should I be good to anyone else? Why should I stick out my neck for someone else? Why should I do anything for anyone except for myself? Because there's absolutely no reason. If everything is disenchantment, everything is material, and there's nothing but materialism, which again, you go back to existentialism, that's sort of what you get, then why would I do that? And again, that goes back to the idea of hard-boiled, your hard-boiled detective, all these kinds of characters that you get within film noir. But again, originally, when these movies were made within the US, within Hollywood, it was just melodrama. That's all they called it, was melodrama. But it did have this modernism, which again, it's cultural modernism, and which led straight into the postmodernism that came not too long afterwards. But going through all of that, this is why I would say I don't use, and I don't think I ever want to use, film noir as a genre. I want to use it as a style. Why? Because, well, within my comic, there is enchantment. That's the whole point of most of the book, right? And here's the thing. Well, let me show you some panels. Let me see if I can get some of these panels up here from the book here. Some of them don't show up very well because, again, I'm computer illiterate. We'll just put some up every once in a while here as I talk. But again, the book is set in the 1930s, and the Great Depression is just bearing down on people, and you're going to get a lot of darkness and starkness, and you have a character who is he's not out for himself, he's not a jaded character, but he's a reluctant hero in it, so much as all he really wanted to do with his life was, be a farmer and have a family, and circumstances do not give him that in any way, shape, or form. And you get that in the first chapter of the first book, which is the first 8 pages. And again, when I publish these, probably on the YouTube channel, you're going to get, I think we'll publish the first 2 chapters at once, just to get people a taste of it, and so they can start reading. And each chapter is 8 pages long, so there's 3 chapters in every book. We'll put it as a quotation marks for book for now, because we'll just be publishing 8 page and then 8 page and then 8 page, usually, I think possibly every 2 weeks, depending on how many artists I can get to work on putting out these stories. But again, the point is that why I went back all the way to the critical theorists and Horkheimer and Adorno, and about the idea of these things have gone beyond the barrier of the unrepeatable. They basically say, the world is disenchanted now, and the world's been disenchanted by us and the movement of humans towards a more rational ideal. And so we don't believe in that nonsense of enchantment anymore. And since it's been placed behind the barrier of the unrepeatable, it's never going to come back. But again, first of all, I would say, well, that's a whole lot of nonsense. The idea of this Hegelian dialectic applied to history is a lot of nonsense. And secondly, there's a lot of us out there who still believe in enchantment. In my religious tradition, I'm part of a religious tradition. Yeah, enchantment is very much there, and it's never gone away. And so, for me, enchantment is a part of life. And this is part of the idea of the heroic that I'm always talking about. Again, the idea of virtues with the, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, the idea of right reason. These are all things which you might not think that there's enchantment in them, but there is if you think about enchantment as purely the physical. Disenchantment as breaking things down to as into nothing but the physical. Because again, why would there be justice if there's nothing but physical matter? That makes no sense, right? And all these ideas. Why would you have courage? Why would you even bother to have courage if there's nothing but the material? You're just going to look out for yourself. So that really isn't courage. That's just self-serving. But for me, enchantment has always been there. For my religious tradition, obviously, enchantment has always been there. And I think that the idea of, and it's a Marxist idea, that we can no longer go back to enchantment, no longer go back to a magical type of viewing the world where you see miracles around every corner or within somebody's eyes or within things that happen, all these kind of things. I would say, no, we can go back to that. And here's the thing. Here's part of the reason why I wanted to do this story now and to make it in this film noir style. It's because we're living basically what the Great Depression was to some extent right now, and we have been for a number of years now. And here's a little interesting thing that I picked up on the internet a couple of months ago. Someone, I don't know if you're going to use this metric or not, but someone used the following metric. They said, okay, we're going to take household items that people need and people use every day or within their regular purchasing, and we're going to compare the salary levels of people today with how much it costs for basic essentials for your household, and then compare that with the Great Depression. And you might be surprised, but when they did that, if you use that metric, we're worse off right now than they were in the Great Depression. And the reason why we don't feel it is because, well, in my, again, my jaded way of looking at things, it's because there's an election coming up in 6 months, 7 months. That's why, because they're trying to, the people in power are trying to make it out as a rosy picture, and they're denying at every turn that we're basically in a depression. I think that's going to flip, quite honestly, if indeed you get Republicans taking back the presidency, then the Democrats are going to just full bore go, oh no, it's a depression now, and they're going to try to take everything. That's my prediction for the future. They're going to try to pull everything down as much as possible to make Donald Trump look bad. But that would probably just make him hopefully look better, because he's a economic president. He's a jobs president. He's a let's get America standing on its own 2 feet president. And so when the other side is calling on woe is me, we're in a Great Depression, and if he actually manages to bring us out of such a thing, well, that's just going to make him smell like roses. But anyways, my point is that we're in that right now. And again, if you use metrics like that, yeah, we're in as bad a situation as the Great Depression right now. And even some of the articles that talk about film noir, they talk about how things like McCarthyism is part and parcel of this kind of idea. And again, going through articles, you can find people right now, historians, who say what we have right now with cancel culture is actually worse than McCarthyism. So again, if you look at today with cancel culture, and if you look at today with economic bad times, to say the least, with hyperinflation and all that's going on with our economy, if you look at the way people are depressed because of what is going on around them, this is a reflection of what was going on in the 30s that brought about the idea of film noir. But to me, to use film noir now as a style, not as a genre, because again, I don't want to incorporate the idea of disenchantment, the idea of existentialism. I'm not incorporating that backdrop. I'm saying let's use film noir again as a story backdrop, not to reflect that hopelessness, but to take that hopelessness again that we face once more, just like we did in the 1930s, and bring us back out of it and bring us into enchantment once again. Bring us back into an idea that, again, there can be heroes, that there can be virtue, that there can be justice, fortitude, temperance, and all of these things that we can believe in. And they don't have to be sitting there as a physical object in front of us. They don't have to be material. Yeah, we can believe in them. We can believe in other people. And that's part of why I'm writing this story and wanted to write this story. So my character, the main character in the story, his name is Jonathan. Just for a first name, just give you his first name. But he's a character that is more or less, I don't know, not really a John Constantine type character, but there's hints of that in it. More of, you're going to get stories like low key X-Files, old school X-Files, not the new ones. But again, you're going to get, yes, it's in a dark and depressing time within history because it's in the 1930s, and people are just looking out for themselves. But in the background, if you know where to look, there are these things going on, which again, you're looking at a panel right now, which are incorporating enchantment into the world, but it's very low key. And it's very much, again, that X-Files kind of style where people around the main characters don't see this. The people around the main characters don't actually acknowledge that any of this is actually happening. It's not something that's taking over the world. It's not something that's going to be, brought right into mainstream like they tried to do with John Constantine within the comic books, which never worked for me. But that's the kind of thing that I want to bring back again, because to me, and to my idea of how the world works, like I see enchantment in every person. This is why I, I do seem down on a lot of people a lot of time. I do. Why? Because I look at a person and I see enchantment there within them. I see nobility there. I look at a human being and say, you could be so much more. You could. And it's your choice whether you grab that brass ring of becoming, well, almost angelic, quite honestly, or if you want to go and be an animal. That's your choice. But you have that within you, and I can see that within people. And to me, that's normal everyday life. And so that's part and parcel why I wanted to write this story and do it in a film noir style. So that's my spiel. I've been going on for at least 20 minutes. What is it? 28 minutes now about film noir, tangentially. But I'll give you a couple more panels here from the book that I'm working on, again, Fade to Blue. And I'll just scroll through them one more time. I'll probably leave the one up that actually shows the full panel, and I will get to your comments and see who is here. I want to thank everybody for coming, by the way. We got 30 people in the chat. We had 13 people in the chat before I even began. So I want to thank everybody for showing up, and let's see if I can have a little chat with people about film noir. Can you just, thank you very much. Hold on one second so I can grab my glasses so that I can read what people are saying without having to strain my eyes every 2 seconds. So technical difficulties, please stand by. We'll see who is here. Let's see. Michael is here. Michael's been here from the very beginning. Vaz is here. How you doing? Zach Dan is here, reading over from John's Long Box. Thank you very much. Let's see. I think Michael has a comment right now. Just give me 1 second. So Michael says, He's talking about the main background, the thumbnail. Michael says the fact that the door says Archer while he's holding the Falcon bugs me because I've seen the movie enough times to know that it's wrong. Well, it's the combination of if I take the picture correctly, it's a combination of Indiana Jones and the Maltese Falcon. So maybe some things are different there. So scrolling down. Tony is here. How you doing, Tony? Let's see. Who else is here? Robert is here. How you doing? Startling Aura 008. How you doing? I don't think I've seen you here before, so glad to see you here. Let's see. Don't Bother is here. How you doing? Robert asks, what is best in life? The a little nod to Crom the Destroyer there for the Conan inspiration. Let's see, scrolling down. Zach Dan has an interesting question here. He says, who did the voices for these trailers? I couldn't say. Not that I mean, if I looked up their name, I could probably find you. But basically, I just found them off of Fiverr. They were voice actors, and I paid them a little bit, and they came and did lines for my trailers. Because, the first trailer that I did, I basically did it myself, and I did the voices for it myself. So that really didn't work very well. Let's see. Scrolling down. Calliope is here. How you doing, Calliope? Pedro is here. How you doing, Pedro? Let's see. Who else is here? Oh, John is here. How you doing, John? Are you still here? I don't know if John is still here. He might have went to bed. John has had a long day. Scrolling down. Zektan says, existential means a lot of things to a lot of people. What does existential mean in this context? Again, I think I went over that. It's basically disenchantment. They're basically defining your existence through nothing but the material. That's what they use existentialism as a definition, basically, when discussing film noir. But again, there's so many different interpretations of film noir that's not across the board, obviously, but within a lot of people that discuss it, that's what I have found. So scrolling down, see what we got here. Manny is here. How you doing, Manny? Manny says hello to the chat. Gordon Goodbrother is here. How you doing, Gordon? Let's see. Here's Robert's answer to that question. I think, therefore I drink. Okay. Let's see. Zach Dan says, I think genre implies conventions and tropes more related to plot. I think you're right that film noir is more of a style. Yeah, again, when you go to film critics, there's a hotly contested, what would you say, point, whether it is a genre or a style. Let's see, scrolling down. Riot Kitty is here and says, how you doing, Riot Kitty? I'm writing a fanfic of Miraculous Ladybug that changes it to a noir mystery, so this might be interesting. All right, well, you would have to make the Miraculous Ladybug. I've never watched it myself, but I think it's, from what I've seen, fairly upbeat, so you'd have to drag it through the mud. So scrolling down. Let's see who else is here. If you have any questions, like I said, just stick them in the chat. Don't Bother says, this is kind of outside the first approach, but any thoughts on from software's lore, RJ, or how Japanese people see lore and separate it sometimes from storytelling? I'm not entirely sure I follow what you're trying to say. Let me just try and read that one more time. Any thoughts on from software's lore? I'm not entirely sure what that refers to. Quite honestly, I am not sure. But the second half of your questions, how Japanese people see lore and separate it sometimes from storytelling. Again, I don't know the context exactly of what you're speaking of, but more basically, if you take the majority, well, I wouldn't say religious sense, it's more of a spiritual sense of the Japanese people within Shintoism and a little bit into Buddhism, which again goes back into your Hinduism, if you travel back through the way that it developed. It's an idea, both of them are ideas of enchantment within your world itself, but an enchantment in the old, almost Greek sense of the word, where you have gods for every last thing. There's a god of this river and a god of that tree and all that kind of stuff within old Greek lore. So you can have a separation of storytelling from lore because lore is so prevalent, that it's almost becomes a backdrop rather than part of the storytelling itself. That would be my take on it. But again, I'm not entirely sure of what you're asking here. Don't bother. So that's the only thing I can think to answer that question with right at the moment. Let's see. Scrolling down. Robert, no, Michael says the French eat snails, so they're not the brightest people on the planet. Okay, well, yeah. uh, I'm not disagreeing with you. Let me put it that way. So Zach Dan says, I heard Quebec was even more emphatic than France, but that's just what I heard. Oh yeah, I travel back and forth across the border. Well, over my life, I've traveled back and forth across the border a lot. And when I speak of the border, it's the American Canadian border. You know, being where business is on both sides of the border, which I have, and New England ties and all these kinds of things. But I know a little bit about Quebec, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, they have literal language police in Quebec. Let's see, and yeah, let's put it this way. Um, there's language police in Quebec, and it extends to the fact that you have to apply to the government to okay the name of your child in Quebec. As far as I know, that was the thing. It's probably still a thing. I don't think it's changed over the last little bit. So they basically don't allow any words to be used as names. Like if you want to call your child Angel, or I don't know, Summer or something like that, I don't think that's permissible. So they won't allow you to use anything but proper French words and proper French names to name your child if your child is born in Quebec. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, it's a French thing. But getting a little off topic here. Let's see. Scrolling down. Vaz says France is still refusing a lot of the French Canadian words, yet let English words creep more and more into everyday use. Yeah, as far as I know, just as far as I understand it, basically French Canadian French is looked down as I don't know, it's looked down upon by people that live in actual France. Like I don't I don't even know if there's an equivalent to it, like someone who speaks Creole or something like that. It's not real French. You know what I mean? Let's see. Scrolling down. Uh, let's see. Yes, thank you very much, Michael. Michael says it is Sam Spade and his partner Miles Archer. Yes. Oh, Sound Engraver is in the chat. How you doing, Sound Engraver? Nice to see you here. Let's see. Scrolling down, I always say, go on over to Sound Engraver's channel and take a look. Sound Engraver does a lot of commentary, like I do on culture, but she does it with a musical bent. So, Sound Engraver, I always give a shout out to because she has a great channel. Let's see. Scrolling down. Robert says there was a cool noir segment in the Animatrix. I did watch the Animatrix at one point. I don't remember the film noir part. I don't, honestly. There might have been. I'll take your word on it, Robert, but I don't remember that. Let's see. David is here. How you doing, David? Let's see. Scrolling down. Sound Engraver says, I may have misremembered Maltese Falcon, but didn't he just refuse to play the sap for the woman because, well, let's leave any spoilers out. He had to stick with his convictions in the end. Again, that's the thing, Sound Engraver. I was actually sort of referencing that in my spiel, but I didn't get to that point. Unfortunately, I got off track. But yeah, for me, watching Maltese Falcon, I take it that way. That's the way I take it. And I take it as him being someone who is sticking to his convictions. You know, he has to stick up for his partner and all that kind of stuff. But for someone who is very much an existentialist, for someone who's watching the movie looking at it through pure materialist eyes, for someone who's looking at it through the lens of disenchantment, they would say, no, he's just being selfish. He's just looking out for himself. And I would say, again, both of those, unfortunately, both of those ways of taking the end scenes of that movie are equally respectable because you can take it both ways very, very easily, depending on who you are. And again, when I learned more and more about film noir, I said to myself, I don't think that's the case within these movies. But no, that's what a lot of people who analyze movies say. So, who am I to disagree with, we'll say, the quote unquote academic part of their analysis of the film? I don't know. Anyways, scrolling down. John is still here, or at the very least was still here. He says, that is, if the CIA lets Trump win again. John, don't get me off on that tangent. All right. Scrolling down. Michael also says, cancel culture is worse than both McCarthyism and the Spanish Inquisition. Let's see. Zach Tan says McCarthy was at least partially right. Yep, I agree with that, quite honestly. Michael also says Walt Disney testified about trying to keep communists out of his company to the HUAAC. Yes, I do remember watching that interview at one point. Let's see. Scrolling down. Warren is here. He says, sorry I'm late. No problem, Warren. How you doing? Let's see. Zach Dan also says, I think the best film noir style protagonists were jerks, but jerks with a heart of gold that slowly regain some of their optimism. Again, that's what I would say. That would be my takeaway from a lot of film noir. I agree. Well, it depends on what film noir films that you actually watch. If you watch the more popular ones, I would say absolutely. If you watch the more obscure ones, not so much. And that's the distinction right there, is the more popular ones, in my estimation, are more popular because it can speak to both audiences that I talked about just when I was answering Sound Engraver or talking to Sound Engraver. They can talk to both audiences at once. So the audience can take it one way or the other. And again, if you have more people identifying with the story, which again, if they can take it one way or the other, you got more people identifying with it, then it is a more popular story. And again, that's why something like the Maltese Falcon appeals to me, because I see the fact that, yes, he does regain some optimism. He does regain some, at the very least, sense of moral fortitude at the end of the movie. So yeah, scrolling down. Let's see. Jonathan is here. How you doing, Jonathan? Great name, Jonathan, because I was just talking about how the panel in the background is from my new story, which is Fade to Blue, and the main character's first name is Jonathan. Let's see. Sound Engraver says, RJ wears glasses. Only very recently, Sound Engraver, because I've been working so much on the computer that my eyes are starting to bug out of my head. Quite honestly, I need to take a little time away from the computer. That's the only thing. Let's see. Scrolling down. Don't Bother says, wasn't McCarthy right all along? And all of them were commies. Yeah, well, again, I'm speaking of it. I'm not disagreeing with any of those statements. I think McCarthy was right. But the idea of that I would say the idea that historians are looking at saying, if that was a witch hunt, and today we have witch hunts with cancel culture, the witch hunts we have today are much worse than the witch hunts we had prior. And again, they're looking at McCarthyism as the last time. That's not me looking at it. That's historians. Let's see, scrolling down. Jonathan also says, "What is your favorite film noir? I love The Third Man and On the Waterfront." Again, quite honestly, the reason why I put Maltese Falcon on the front thumbnail of this live stream is because that would be my favorite film noir film. Third Man is great. Quite honestly, I own The Third Man, and I do watch it every once in a while. So yeah, but I don't think it has as uplifting a style again, and you have Bogart in the Maltese Falcon, so always love Bogey. Let's see. Nick is here. How you doing, Nick? He's answering his sound engraver and says it's okay. They're glasses that allow him to see through time. Scrolling down. Let's see. We got new faces in here. Oh no, JJJ is not a new face. My apologies, JJJ. But I categorize people in my mind through their avatars, and avatars I don't see very much. I just think of as new. And John is still here. I am still here, says John. the tiny voice crying in the corner. I'm still here. Great. I'm glad you're still here, John. Let's see. Scrolling down. We got some heady comments here. Vaz says, I don't think modern entertainment machine can do film noir again. I was baffled to see they remade that French title. I'm not even going to try to pronounce French. Wage of Fear into an action flick with a girl boss. No, I don't know if they could do film noir either, just because the hard-boiled nature of it. Because the thing is that, again, the whole thing is with your quote-unquote progressives of today is that they're soft as can be. And so having characters that were that hard and that harsh, I don't think they could do film noir today. No, I agree. Let's see. Scrolling down. Scrolling down. Michael says, From Software is the company that makes Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and Elder Rings. Okay. I have literally never played any of those. The only thing that would come close to me playing anything like that would be Diablo. That was a while ago. Diablo and Diablo 2. But yeah, so quite honestly, I don't remember the question now, Michael. And if I try to go up and find it, I will lose my place. Let's see. Question here. Honeymoon says, RJ, Jonathan's last name better be cooler than Jonathan. Well, names are something I am very, very particular with. So a lot of time and effort has gone into all names that I use within my comics. And Jonathan as a name for the character is a callback to, well, I do. Let's see. I do a lot of callbacks to, I'm going to lose my place here, unfortunately. I do a lot of callbacks to other 1930s and that area around popular culture references within these stories. Not so much as I don't reference them directly as stories within my story, but I reference them in basically the backdrop, and names I particularly use in that way as well. That's the only hint I'm going to give on that, but I'll show you this panel and someone might be able to figure out what one of the references is here for a 1930s type Easter egg that you might find within this book. So scrolling down and see if we can get back to our comments here. We'll see if anybody gets that. It's only a tiny little Easter egg. Scrolling down. Let's see. I think I lost my place, but I will find it fairly quickly because I'm not that far from the end, I don't think. Warren says, here we are. I can see the parallel between early comics and the noir movie genre. Yeah, that's the thing. Because, again, film noir wasn't called film noir. when it first came out. It was just called melodrama. And so it wasn't just in film. There were books as well, obviously, because you have a lot of the hard-boiled detective stories as stories that were written down a lot sooner than they were made into movies. So yeah, comic books was able to pick up on that as well, and that's why, to me, again, I always say I go back to the Will Eisner way of making comics, and the Will Eisner way is the fact that you could take a comic and you can make it into a movie, and that might work, but you really can't take a movie or movie ways of representing sequential art and put it back into a comic. It just doesn't work. You're taking out too many of the factors that make it work on the screen to actually have it work within your comic book. And to me, that works with, to some extent, genres as well. But you could take the style, as I say, if you look at it, film noir, not as a genre, but as a style, you can take the style and use that. As Will Eisner always talks about, taking the style from different kinds of sources, like lighting within stage plays. He uses that immensely within his Spirit books. And the same thing is with film noir. Film noir uses light and shadow expertly, and that's one of the things that you can do very well within comics, especially if you're going to use black and white, which again, majority of this book is going to be black and white. Let's see. Scrolling down. Robert says no hippie names allowed in Quebec. No, really, I don't think there are. Scrolling down. Zach Dan says Quebec, France, and Belgium all think they have the best form of their language, and fair enough. Root for your team. I don't know if Quebec really thinks it has the best version of French. Maybe. I really don't know. Don't. But I'm a little bit skeptical of that one. But yeah, France and Belgium probably. Let's see. Tony says my favorite noir film is 1987's Angel Heart. I'm not familiar with Angel Heart right off the top of my head, quite honestly. Let's see. Don't Bother says the one on Animatrix was a Shino La Crier wannabe, the guy from Cowboy Bebop. He is going to release, I think the show is called Lazarus. Okay. Excuse me. I do know who you're talking about. Cowboy Bebop was never my thing, but I very much enjoyed Samurai Champloo. Some of the parts of it were but at the very least, it gave me a good sense of the man's work, and he does portray interesting visuals, to say the least, and interesting ways of mashing things together with storytelling. Let's see. Scrolling down. Vaz also says in Quebec, there's a lot of foreign and even hippie names. I think it's mostly about banning the use of strange item names like calling your child spatula and such. Okay. I don't know. I don't live in Quebec. I've never lived in Quebec. I just drive through it. So, and when you drive through it, you just try to go straight through. That way you don't have to stop and try to talk to someone who is only going to talk to you in French and look at you like you don't belong there. So anyway, just leave it at that. Scrolling down. Samuel says, and he quotes, you bungled it. And you and your stupid attempt to buy it. Oh yeah. So he's quoting the Maltese Falcon. Yes, quoting the bloated idiot is Casper Gutman. Yes, indeed. Beautiful piece of filmmaking. I watch the Maltese Falcon probably about every 5 years. Let's see. Scrolling down, Sound Engraver, thank you very much, says, that's an interesting take on film noir. Well, that would be my take on it. And most people, apparently, I don't know why, but take my take on things as being interesting. That's why I have a channel with 22,000 subscribers. So John says, I like The Fourth Man as a movie. It's one man better than The Third Man. Okay. All right, John. All right. With your I don't know. Is it a double entendre that you're using there? I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. Scrolling down. Samuel says, see if I can get to Samuel's comment up here. After watching the Maltese Falcon and a few others of that era, I now finally understand that Peter Lorre's character cue the Looney Tunes used a million times. Yeah, Peter Lorre, they use. I love Peter Lorre in honestly, Maltese Falcon, he's really good in that. But if you want Peter Lorre in what I think is his best role, go to Arsenic and Old Lace. He is spectacularly funny in that movie. He plays the same character as you would usually get Peter Lorre playing in any kind of film noir, but he plays it in a way where it's a comedy. The play and the movie that it's based off of that uses Peter Lorre, it's hilarious. It's just, I don't know any other way to put it. And the fact that he plays a pivotal role in the outcome of the entire thing with his German accent is very, very. I don't know. It's hilarious. I can't think of any other way to put it. It's hilarious. Let's see. Scrolling down. Tony says, keep on trying to put these up. Tony says, RJ, have you read any of Howard's crime noir stories? I have not. Quite honestly, I have not. I have listened to a little bit, just somebody reading the boxer stories that he did. Not very many of them, but no, his crime stories, I've really not run across any of them, quite honestly. Scrolling down. See if we can get to. Oh, nope. Again, people warned me last week. Stop saying you're getting to the bottom of the chat, because you're not getting to the bottom of the chat. Every time you say that, you're just jinxing yourself. I thought I was getting to the bottom of the chat. I am nowhere near the bottom of the chat. Don't Bother says, sounds like you are also thinking about noir writing. Are you cooking some comic noir style? Any also thoughts on Marvel noir? Marvel noir? I don't think Marvel does noir. Quite honestly, but anyways, unless you can bring me up some examples that I'm not thinking of, which is quite possible. Comic noir style, yes. Again, you go back to, I would think, quite honestly, that Will Eisner does use noir style within the spirit. And again, I love that type of storytelling. The idea, first and foremost, and just basic ideas like using light and shadow as almost character elements for your story and mood and setting and all that kind of stuff. It's very much a film noir style. So if you go that way with comic noir, then yeah, I would very much love to do that kind of thing. And hopefully we'll learn more and more to continue this story, because I'd like to continue the story if it does well at all. Let's see. Scrolling down. Let's see here. I'll scroll down. Let's see. Zach Dan says, yeah, Spatula City. Referring to the Quebec conversation we were having earlier. But I don't really think I have much to say on that one. Michael says, it's hard to choose between Maltese Falcon and Casablanca as Bogart's best movie. Quite honestly, here's the thing. Yes, I would agree with that. But I would also add The Big Sleep into that, because I couldn't choose between the three. The only problem with The Big Sleep, again, you want complicated storytelling, go to The Big Sleep. I think it was a book before it was a movie, if I remember correctly. I think I have it on my shelf, actually. But that's the only reason why I think it's not usually mentioned with those two, is because of the complicated storytelling. You can get lost really easily in The Big Sleep if you're not paying attention. Let's see. Scrolling down. Vaz says, if you can fight a bear with your bare hands, you can stop in Quebec anytime without worries. Yeah, I suppose stopping in Quebec, we can stop in Montreal because everybody speaks English basically in Montreal. But um, the only reason why I don't like to stop in Quebec is, again, my French is very limited, so I don't want to offend people with my, well, pronunciation is probably a bad way to put it. I apologize. You were having a little bit of technical difficulties just here for a minute because I can't reach my thermostat, and it is getting really warm in here. So you're gonna have to give me a minute. All right, let's see what else we got here. Scrolling down. Samuel says, I got to see Arsenic and Old Lace for the first time in a vintage theater last month. I loved it so much. Yep, it is one of my favorite films. And I think one of the Aunt Abby from Arsenic and Old Lace. She also plays one of the main characters within Harvey, which again, that's Jimmy Stewart. And again, that was a play. That was a stage play before it was made into a movie. One of my favorite movies. And she's great in both of those roles. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. Scrolling down. Vaz says Marvel Noir is a 2009-2010 Marvel Comics alternative continuity combining elements of film noir and pulp fiction with the Marvel Universe. Well, unfortunately, I don't know anything about it, quite honestly, because 2009, 2010 was when I was just done with Marvel. I mean, I was done with Marvel in 1995. So it's in that gray area where after I got back into comics about 10 years ago, I started to try to buy stuff from the back bins. Usually they're all in the dollar bins, and read them and see if I could catch up. And it's not something I ever ran across, quite honestly. Scrolling down. You're referencing other characters. That's cool. Well, I want to reference 1930s not pulp fiction, 1930s popular culture. Because again, there's just little Easter eggs in there with my storytelling, because why not? Again, we're in the 1930s, and a lot of people are not going to get these 1930s references, because I'm someone who likes Robert E. Howard and goes back and reads Robert E. Howard. I'm someone who likes black and white films. I'm someone who watches things from the 30s and reads books from the 30s. So, I'll get them, and maybe a couple other people will get them, and maybe down the line some people will point them out. But I think it enriches the storytelling at the very least. We'll put it that way. Let's see, scrolling down. Samuel says, would you consider some of Hitchcock's movies like Rebecca and Shadow of a Doubt film noir? That is a really interesting question. I don't know. Quite honestly, I would have to rewatch those in order to actually answer that question, which, funny enough, I just pulled down my Hitchcock collection off of the shelf about a month ago, planning to rewatch a bunch of them, but I haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, I couldn't say, Samuel, off the top of my head, quite honestly. Again, I'd have to go through a rewatch to answer that question. All right, scrolling down. Oh, John's referencing something he said in the live stream we did at John's Long Box. He says, that beard shirt really keeps you warm. Yeah. John thinks I have a giant beard. I already told John I have no beard at all. I am clean shaven because I am someone who finds a beard so itchy. I tried, John. I really tried. I know you're probably saying to yourself, you can't be a real comic book creator now if you don't have a beard. But no, don't have a beard. I never could keep a beard because it just itchy so much. Can't deal with that. Let's see. Scrolling down, Michael says, would you consider Citizen Kane as a film noir? I would consider it a film noir style. If you're considering it as genre, not maybe, but certainly stylized. Yes, I would. Let's see, scrolling down. We are getting to the end of the chat, just to let you know. I'll give you that warning to anybody who wants to put anything in the chat. If you have a question for me, I'm getting to the end, and it's over an hour. So, let's see, scrolling down to, let's see. Honduran I'm not entirely sure where that name begins and where that name ends. but we'll call you Honduran. You're referencing other characters. That's cool enough. I always try to use Germanic names, sometimes Celtic, too many Greek, Hebrew, Latin names in English considered to be normal names. Okay, well, I do. Like I said, I always names is something that I put, well, not too much. Um, I don't struggle with it, but at the very least, all the names for my characters mean something. There is a connection for each of these characters. And if you look at some of the names, if you got, let's say, the cards for uh, Thomas Valiant #1. It came with a set of 12 cards if you ordered them. And you got to see the names for most of the characters. Some of them are unknown, but for most of the characters, you get to see the names. And all of those names have very specific reasons for being named. I don't even remember some of them off the top of my head, but like Ram, who is basically a character that's um, like Marvel's Rhino. If I remember correctly, his name has, I think it's Russian, and it has something to do with um, livestock, stuff like that, because his name is Ram, right? Things like that. So yeah, I do put effort into naming things. Blue skies, I know. I won't say this one out loud. You'll have to figure this out yourself. It's one of those Easter eggs that I'm never going to give away unless someone comes up with it. But Blue skies is one of the characters within Thomas Valiant. He has a card, and his name is given on that card, and it has a very specific double reference to his name. So yeah, it's something that I do with all of my characters. Let's see, scrolling down, even Thomas Valiant. Uh, let's see. Soundagraver says, I knew RJ didn't have a beard. No, I do not. Yeah, I keep the, not to say that I keep the shaving company and money, because I don't shave that often, but a couple of times a week is all I can manage, because I got other stuff to do. But I cannot, a couple of days is as much as I can handle. And it's like, oh, I got to get rid of this. Scrolling down. I always have a mental image of what people may look like. Yes. Well, like I said, Sound Engraver, don't normally wear glasses, only for reading now. That's about it. So scrolling down. RJ is a clean shaven and has an Olympic swimmer. Well, I do live on an island and I love the ocean, but my swimming is not what it should be. I'll give you that. Let me put it this way. I've always grown up, well, not always. I've lived around great bodies of water, not the ocean, right? But on beaches and things like that. And I've had a couple of close calls with drowning. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, I got to be, as a kid, a little bit scared of the water. So I'm not the greatest swimmer in the world, just because a little bit of panic always sets in. Childhood trauma, I guess you could call it, when I try to swim way far. And yeah, we'll leave it there. That's a little RJ lore for you. Let's see. Scrolling down. Let's see. There's a little crosstalk in the chat that I'll skip over. Alessandro is here. How you doing, Alessandro? RJ, what do you think about heroes who commit crimes like Lupin and Robin Hood? Again, I think you asked this question last week, Alessandro, but maybe you weren't here for the answer. Again, I would say that we'll go with the Thomistic attitude of the entire thing. An unjust law is no law at all. And that's basically what Robin Hood was doing, right? He's saying that basically he is being loyal to Richard the Lionheart, who would never have put these heavy taxes on the people. The sheriff puts these heavy taxes on the people in an unjust way. It's not really a law that should be followed, because it's an unjust law. And so to take that money back and to give it to the people who it belongs to, I don't think is a crime. Pure and simple, because no law is being broken, because it's an unjust law, and an unjust law is no law at all. So I'll put it in those terms. Let's see. Scrolling down. Michael says Eastern Europe is a great place to get fantasy sounding names from, especially for wizards. Interesting. Okay, I am finally. Oh, look, I got to the bottom of the chat, and it's only 1 hour and 9 minutes into the stream. I like to keep it at an hour. So I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. We still have 21 people in the chat still, so thank you very much. I know that my take on film noir is just a comic book take on film noir, but I wanted to share that with people because, again, you're looking out in the background. This story that I am working on right now called Fade to Blue. Again, my artist, Enrique, is done he's almost done of the second chapter of the first book. So again, we'll probably be publishing this fairly soon on, I think, as I said, the YouTube channel. If I can swing it, I don't know if YouTube will allow me to do that or if there's a way to do it on YouTube. But again, part of the reason why, I gave you part of the reason why I'm doing a film noir thing, but again, the one of the good reasons, and that feeds into this entire thing, is the fact that if I keep it black and white or as simple as possible, then we can get these things out fairly quickly, and there isn't going to be a whole lot of wait time between the finished product of the art and actually giving you the story. So, depends on who I can get for artists to do this. If I can get different artists to work on these types of stories, if I can get different artists to work on this same story, I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to work on a bunch of stories like this. And I'm also probably, if I get my acting gear, also do some Crom the Destroyer stories, which are going to be just text stories, nothing but text, like I had available on the Crom Destroyer, still available right now, link in the description, available with the graphic novel. You can also purchase text story, which is Morning Light, which has now been upgraded to 2 text stories. If you bought that perk, you get 2 stories now, not just 1. And it's a pure text story. It was published in Iron Age magazine. The first Morning Light part of it was, but the second part was not. So again, we'll probably be writing more of those Crom the Destroyer text stories, and also offering those up as part and parcel of these stories that I'm trying to get out just via the internet for now. And again, just like Fade to Blue, which again, you're looking at one of the panels in the background. Once we get a significant amount of those done, if they're liked at all, we will continue on and make more, hopefully. Once we get to a critical mass of those stories, I probably will publish them. Again, probably in black and white, because I think that's the best way to do it. But I'm not saying that for sure right now. And it's the same with the Crom the Destroyer stories. And possibly I've been looking into smaller things, like the fact that I really like the old Conan the Barbarian 3-panel, what do you call them, newspaper reels. So those kinds of things I might, depending on who I can get to work with me, do something like that as well, to offer up to people who subscribe and will be able to get to these parts of the YouTube channel. So, because again, these will be, you pay for them. Basically, you pay a subscription and you'll be able to read these stories online. So that's the future of the channel. Hopefully it will bring in people who want to read things digitally, because I know I do have a lot of people contacting me and saying, I just can't afford to pay the shipping and the book right now. So is there anything you publish digitally? So these are going to be my stories for those people. And again, not just for those people, but for everybody else as well. And it's a great way to support the channel. And I would say, once we get this up and running, thank you very much to everyone who contributes to the channel, and certainly everyone I would thank right now, everyone who gives me super chats, who gives me tips, who is part of anything that it gives me money for the products that I produce. Thank you so much. All right, so that was big old long spiel. Just want to let everybody know before we go that links are in the description for my graphic novels, Crom the Destroyer and the Valiant Heroes. We're shipping Valiant Heroes right now, so you might not be able to get that too much into the future. If you want to order yourself a copy, we might be shutting that down. I'm not entirely sure. It depends, because we've already printed everything and I only have so many reprints, or so many extra prints. I didn't want to go hog wild and have hundreds of extra prints that I don't know if I'm going to sell. So we have, I think, probably like 25 to 50 extra. So once those are sold out, we're probably closing down, and you might not be able to get that book for a while. Not entirely sure. Just to let you know. Anyways, I'm going to leave you, as I usually do, with the second trailer for Crom the Destroyer. Again, you're not so much film noir, but very much low fantasy story with a little twist. So thank you very much, everyone, for showing up tonight, and I will see you all later again next week. Bye.
No matter how many wars you fight, no matter how much blood you shed, no matter how much rage you loose, no matter how many demons you face, no matter how many companions you lose, no matter if our kingdom falls, I know that you will return to me in honor.